We are here at Immaculate Conception Cemetery, south of St. Helena in Cedar County. You can see behind me is St. Mary's Chapel. This cemetery was the site of the first church in Cedar County. Many pioneers were attracted to the area in and around St. Helena because of the availability of water power and timber. The first Catholic settlers arrived in 1856. The town of St. Helena was laid out in 1858, and construction of the first homes began in 1859. The first Mass in this area was at a log home celebrated by Benedictine Father Thomas Bartle from Nebraska City in 1862. In 1862, the settlers agreed to erect a permanent church and cemetery. A small log church was completed the following year, located 2.5 miles southwest of St. Helena along the Bow Creek. One of these settlers, John Lammers, advanced money for its construction. Lammers also donated land for this cemetery. In 1863, John Lammers' wife, Susanna, and a set of twins died. We have here the gravestones of John and Susanna. It's believed that the original church structure sat across the road behind me, near this corner of the cemetery, before St. Mary's Chapel was built on the site within the cemetery itself. They named the church the Immaculate Conception, since the dogma of the Immaculate Conception had been defined by the church not 10 years prior in 1854. Church services were not as convenient for the beginning settlers as they are today. A traveling priest from Jackson would come once a month for Mass and would perform burials, weddings, and baptisms at that time. In 1869, the first resident pastor, Father Ferdinand Leckleitner, set about enlarging the original church, building a rectory, and planned to construct 2 chapels and schools in the vicinity, the first on the West Bow Creek, which would later become Bow Valley, and second at Antelope Creek, which would later be Menominee. Construction on St. Boniface Church at Antelope Creek began in the spring of 1870. Father Leckleitner wanted to change the location of the church here at Bow Creek to St. Helena itself, but there was a dispute among a number of parishioners, and so the church remained here. When Father John Daxacher took charge in 1871, there were more than 100 Catholic families in the area. Even with Father Leckleitner's improvements, the small log church could only hold part of the congregation. And so the church was enlarged again with a frame addition, but Father Daxer proposed to move to a new church within the town of St. Helena. Again, a quarrel arose between the priest and people about the church's location, in particular by John Lammers. It is not surprising, of course, that John Lammers advocated for the church to remain here, as it was near his homestead as well as where he had laid his wife and children to rest. Lammers, though, attempted to use the parish's unpaid loan from before Father Daxer's time as leverage to keep the church here at Bow Creek. Unwilling to yield the church's location, Father Daxer spent the rest of his time repaying the debt and foregoing any personal salary for himself until he left the parish in 1878. The new frame church, therefore, was built at St. Helena in 1874, and the current Church of Immaculate Conception at St. Helena was built in 1896. In 1884, a new chapel was built in the cemetery, replacing the old log church. In 1886, the old church, now in fairly poor condition, was sold and later ended up being destroyed by fire. This chapel was used for Mass once a week, as well as for catechetical instruction. Later, it was used for Memorial Day services, and still later, it was left virtually unused. In 1972, parishioners decided to keep it as a landmark, maintaining the interior as close to the original as possible. The cemetery and chapel continue to be maintained today.